Okay, I'm going to do a final project with my CNC machine. If you follow the second channel, you might be aware that I'm building a new CNC machine. And I'll just point at it. It's over there. It's called Big Red. But that machine isn't ready yet, and I've got something I want to work on, so I'm going to use this thing. So this machine has a attachment which I 3D printed, which has a mounting bracket for an op laser engraving module. I'm planning to migrate all the electronics over to the new machine, but I want to do one last project using the laser in conjunction with the router spindle. I've bought a lot of carpenter's pencils which I'm planning to personalize using the laser engraver. The laser was sent to me by a Polish company called Op Laser, and if you want to know more about the module, there's a video on my second channel which I'll link to in the description and information card. So the first thing I need to do is measure several pencils to make sure they are all consistent. With that information I can then design a jig to hold them in a known position on the CNC machine. Okay, so if I zoom in you can see the pattern that I've created with the dog bone effect so that the pencil could fit within that gap. This is a little bit elaborate, to be honest. Really what you can do is just cut a 90-degree angle out and push these against the edge, because if you're laser engraving, the laser isn't going to actually move the material that it's engraving against. This option is probably more for routering. So if you were to use a V-bit and to actually engrave something onto the pencil, I'd kind of like to have the option to do both, so I'm going to use this template. I'll just explain how I created it. So if I just go backwards and then go forwards. So I made a rectangle first and gave it the dimensions of 290 high and 240 millimeters, and I created a rectangle within that initial rectangle of 178 by 13.5, which is a little bit bigger than the pencil, so it should fit in. Oh no, damn it. Then I'm going to position this so it's in the center, so I'm making an equation here, 240 minus the pencil width, which is 178, divided by 2, and then I'm going to orientate this to the top, and I want that to be about 30. Then I'm going to create the dog bone effect, so this means I put a circle and 2-point circle, and in each corner I drag across, and I'm going to use a 6mm bit, so I'll write 6.1, and I'm doing that for each one. When I want to repeat, just right click and select. I'm going to now trim, just press T, the additional lines that I've created, because essentially what I want is just a outside vector line that I can follow. If I go to sketch, I can go to rectangular pattern. I can select the lines that I want to do the pattern to. If I change quantity to 1, and the expanse is going to be, it'd be 290, take away 60 because of the position of the top and bottom, and 13.5 because it's measuring from one side of this object. And now in distance I can write that measurement, 216.5. If I zoom out, you see the magic happening. Well, make sure that's going in the right direction. So if I do minus, and I can now just increase the quantity until it populates that space between the points. I'm happy with that. I press OK, and now I can export this and send it to my CNC software. And the way you do that is you go to the sketch folder, find the sketch, and you save it as a DXF file. So I'm now going to ArtCam. Just happens to be what I've got, this software isn't supported anymore. It got bought by Autodesk and they amalgamated it into their packages and it doesn't exist anymore. So I'm heavily considering moving to Vectrix when I can afford to. So the height is 290, the width is 240. My point that I'm referencing as my home is in the top right corner for this CNC machine. If you click in other places, it will change depending on the CNC machine. I press OK. I can now go to import. The board I'm using is 9.33mm and the material setup 9.3. So this is quite a simple one. Just select all of those. I'll go to toolpaths and I'm going to go to area clear. I'm going to add a 6mm bit. God, I haven't used this CNC machine for so long. So 6mm softwood. Okay, I'll select that. Offset, conventional, giving it a name, calculate, and that's kind of ready now. I put a 6mm up spiral single flute O cutter into my collet and then screw down a piece of 9mm MDF to my wasteboard. I just want to make sure that I'm quite close to the edge. So if this was something I was going to do over a long period of time, I would try and dig up the file for the wasteboard with the positioning of the mounting holes and try and mill this out so that I could bolt it down instead. But because I know I'm only going to do a limited run and then I'll get distracted, I'm only going to just screw this down. I homed the machine and then moved the router spindle to what will be my origin position at the corner of the 9mm MDF. Just going to move this across to get a screw in this corner here. Here I'm using my probe attachment to set the Z origin to the MDF itself. I'm not going to go into the details, but I have a lot of videos on my second channel about some of these steps, and what I'll do is try and link to the relevant video in the information card if you're curious. So from Fusion 360 I went and imported that DXF file into ArtCam. I then applied the toolpaths onto that, exported the G-code, and now what I'll be using to do the cutting is another piece of software, this time called CNC. This one is an open source thing. It's quite a workflow of software and it will get further complicated when I get to the laser engraving bit as well. I'm going to cut one groove out first and check the fit, and then I'll cut the rest. Pretty good. A little bit of a wobble along that axis. I probably could have made it a bit tighter, but I think it's fine. The next thing I need to do is work out the offset of my laser, so how far the center of the laser beam is to the center of the spindle. The simplest way I decided I could do that was to laser engrave across while keeping the gantry in the same origin position, and then measuring that mark to a known mark made previously on the 9mm MDF while routering the jig. I exported the G-code from Inkscape using the JTech plugin. I've added a header and footer which I'm having to watch my own videos to remind me of what I was doing. I make sure that there's no power going to the laser so I don't have any accidents. So you can see that there. I measured that with a calipers, but I could have also put a V cutter into the collet and moved the spindle to the laser engraved point, measuring the movement in CNC. I took note of that and then offset the DXF file in the next software, this time within Inkscape. So the jig had shifted to compensate for the position of the laser. The new origin was now on the 0, 0 coordinates of the canvas within Inkscape. I set the engraving toolpath, this time using a JTech plugin for Inkscape, exported the G-code, opened that in CNC, and press play. While cutting, I had an inline extractor venting fumes from the engraving process to the outside world, and I was also wearing laser safety goggles that were provided with the OptLaser module. Okay, I think I'm quite happy with this design. I think I'll do a batch of them, maybe 20 or 30, I'm not sure. So that was my laser engraved pencil projects. If you like that video, please let me know in the comments or by sacrificing a thumb to the algorithm gods. There are links to the usual things in the description below, or to similar or related videos in the information card. Thanks again for watching, and you'll catch me in the next one.